Do you date someone who had like a considerable amount of debt? What's like your ideal split with your partner? Do you consider like your partner's income?
I'm not saying I'll supplement their income, but maybe I'll supplement their income.
We have a prenup.
Oh, wow.
Dual income is nice, and make sure he has 2 jobs then.
Hey, it's Vakola. Welcome back to another street interview video. In this video, we'll be asking New York City residents how they think about love and their finances. We've all heard that very famous saying that love conquers all. But what happens when that check comes on your first date and when bank statements become joint bank statements? In this video, we'll be asking New Yorkers some very spicy questions about how they manage money in their relationship, how they split expenses, prenups. Let's get started. How important is financial stability when you're considering your potential partner?
It's definitely important. I mean, it's something that I want to be sure that it's not going to be like an issue long term. So you have to like start off knowing that. I mean, not considering myself a gold digger. I want to know that the person I'm with is stable for themselves, and that way like I can feel secure about that. It is important to me.
I'm just of the mindset that I'll be able to take care of myself, but I'd want someone who's responsible, but they, don't have to be rich and wealthy or anything.
I'm more thinking about myself. As long as I can provide for myself, that's my main priority.
No, not quite. No, I just go off of intuition.
Okay.
And the feels, the vibes, and money never plays a factor in my life.
You don't want to be like the breadwinner all the time, and like what if you lose a job or something like that. You also want to make sure you have some stability as well.
Do you consider like your partner's income like when you're deciding to partner with them?
To be simple, no. Girlfriend and boyfriend, I think it's like we're independent, right? But once you get married, it's more of like you got to start thinking about both incomes, but I don't think it's an issue.
No, I think like if they have like significant amounts of debt, I might think about it in like a context of like, oh, are they like responsible? But not seriously. No, I don't.
In my situation, since we're speaking like in literal terms, we started dating when we were pretty young, so I was not really thinking about money. I didn't have money, so I didn't expect anyone else to have money. But I do think that if I was like single in the phase that I am right now, like at my age, it wouldn't be a deal breaker, but I would want to know that someone is able to at least provide for themselves if I'm going to like spend substantial amount of time and invest in them.
I believe in transparency. That being said, for me, it's less about finance and about someone reaching their fullest potential. If my partner is doing what they need to be doing to be fulfilled, and that doesn't necessarily make a ton of money, I'm not saying I'll supplement their income, but maybe I'll supplement their income.
When I was younger, I thought that was important to me, especially when I was starting to date again. Living in New York, you're surrounded by a lot of successful people, so I thought that's what I wanted in a partner. But at the same time, there are other things like fulfillment and, how they spend their free time and what they do to make you happy. So I think finances don't really matter for me.
Just a basic answer is just as long as they are willing to work, really. That's all. It doesn't matter what it is, just, dual income is a lot easier especially when you look towards the future. That's all.
Dual income is nice, and make sure he has 2 jobs then.
I'm not going to weed people out based on their financial income as long as I want to be stable and do whatever I want. But ideally, they're not making crazy bad decisions. I feel like I'd probably make sure that's not happening.
I mean, I wouldn't say that that's a main factor for me. I would definitely like someone that can afford to be here because I see myself in New York City for a long time. So I'd want someone that feels financially secure in that, but that's not a make or break for me, and I'm definitely comfortable dating someone who makes more money than me because this is an expensive city and I don't make a ton of money being in education, but I would say that that's not a deal breaker, but a nice thing if they do make a decent living.
Would you date someone who had a significant amount of debt?
I think I would have, but it depends if they're making effort to pay off that debt.
Yeah.
And if the reason for that debt also probably comes into play as well.
She said it depends on the context of the debt. Is it something that is because of a gambling problem and it's growing and it's something that you're working towards resolving, versus is it student loans where you're just caught in a horrible system and you're doing your best to stay afloat. Those are very different situations.
That's something I would consider if we're talking about getting married, and I wouldn't mind them asking me the same question because it is a big deal. it's like your baggage, and once you join or merge those, then they can add up. So it's important to know.
I think debt's an interesting conversation because, like, even as you isolated, there's so many different kinds of debt. I think credit card debt is, one, a serious issue in the US, especially even the barrier of access to credit is a very, very hot topic. I think that that's a bridge that I have yet to cross. But I think student debt is inherently like a different product, right? Like when I think about student debt, it's way less interest. There are ways to pay it off. There's a lot of means and mechanisms to keep that under control. So I don't know if that's the best answer.
But you're saying it depends on the type.
I think it depends on the type of debt. Credit card debt, no. Student loans, sure.
Similarly, like I think you have to bifurcate between like personal debt from like credit card versus education, which is more an investment in yourself. So I think I would weigh that differently. But at the same time, I would prefer to keep my finances separate. So, what you do with your personal finances, so long as it doesn't affect me, I would be okay with it.
Depends what kind of debt it is, really. Because when you really think about the long-term future there, and someone does have a significant amount of debt, eventually you'll inherit that. So I do think it's a conversation to have. So case-by-case scenario, I would say.
Before getting too serious, that would definitely need to be a conversation about their plans around their debt and how they plan to work that off. Student loan debt is one thing versus just being maybe not as responsible with money and going into a lot of credit card debt. So definitely, again, not an automatic make or break, but something that would be more of a conversation before becoming really serious with someone.
What's like your ideal split with your partner?
Okay, I know this is so controversial right now in the room. Okay, in my history, I've done the 50-50 and I've also done where he pays probably 80-90% of everything. Obviously, it's nice to be spoiled, but also I just am weary of specifically guys who prefer to pay for everything because it's like usually a catch there and it can become sort of a weird situation where like, he's expecting something or whatever. So I think probably I'd be more comfortable with like 50-50 majority of the time, but get spoiled every now and then.
My partner and I do 50-50. I also don't ever like to feel like I owe anyone anything. I like to pay for myself, but I also do like to pay for him as well. I think it's like fun for us to both spoil each other. So I think we do split that as well. Like he'll take me out for dinner, but then I'll also take him out for dinner, like to celebrate something as well. So we're pretty 50-50, but not like down to the penny, but we'll be like, oh, you bought lunch, I'll buy dinner tonight. It's not like pinching pennies with it, but it's just like this feels equal.
I think the most fair thing to do is split expenses based on income if you're living together on it. Like if you guys are not living together, then obviously like do whatever you need to do. But if you're living together, I feel like if somebody makes more, then they kind of like do it based on what they make. Because like 50-50 when somebody's making like 30,000 versus someone that's making like 100 grand, like is not fair in my opinion.
Yeah, I think you have to have like an equitable split, and that's like more fair.
50-50 for the most part, but sometimes pay for certain things more often than not. But in terms of rent, we pay 50-50.
We've tried out different methods and like different points of our relationship. I think it depends on like what job we're in and what our income is. Like there were moments where he was at a higher paying job than I was, so it felt fair to like split it more, maybe like 60-40. And now we're in a place where we're a little bit more equitable, and so now we kind of go 50-50. But I think that that's like something that we would continue to talk about and will continue to be in flux as our careers continue.
I like to be relatively independent in terms of finances. Like I want to be able to afford my lifestyle from what I make and not rely on another person for that. So I'm open to, splitting things 50-50. If my partner were to make a lot more money than me, then I would want to be able to have conversations about that and maybe split depending on the income. But I think that relationships are a give and take, so I want to be able to do that financially as well.
I wanted to ask if they plan to combine their finances with their partner.
It's mostly separate, but like we sort of treat it as a shared pool, but like how it's actually organized and stored is separate.
It might be a little embarrassing, but it's mostly because we're lazy, so we haven't actually done the effort to do it, but like we don't really keep track of anything. Kind of like whoever's credit card is most handy, or because we're originally from Canada, we moved here, it's like whoever has the right credit card for the right country.
I think to us it seems odd when couples have separate finances, just because we've not done that for our entire marriage.
Yeah, sounds
but
good.
I understand. I guess I understand, especially people come together later in life and they've had their own careers and are independent financially.
Yeah, because it seems somewhat non-committal if you start out that way, right? It's like it's almost like you're setting yourself out for failure and non-commitment. But later in life, I can see that being the case. Right? As you age, you get a bit more conservative and you become a little bit more self-protective. But if you're a young couple, I think it'd be more relationship nurturing to combine the tools.
What do you guys think about like prenups? Do you think every couple should consider it?
We have a prenup.
Oh wow.
And we talked about it beforehand. I think everyone should get a prenup personally, only just because it's kind of like getting house insurance. Obviously, you don't think something bad is going to happen, but you never know. And I'm of the opinion that if, money complication is the only reason you're staying together, it's not a good reason to stay in a marriage. And I don't think, at least for me, it doesn't make it easier to make the decision because you're still ending a marriage either way. But it's just like, if you were to get to that point, you're probably not your best self in that moment. And I think it's easy to make a decision that you would regret or like act in a way that in the long run probably isn't beneficial. So better to come to an agreement when you're both very much in love and happy and you want the best for each other.
Yeah, I was definitely more like in the other camp when we first talked about it, of like against it, why would you plan for failure? But the more I thought about it, the more like that's not really the way that I should think about it. I should think about it more like what you were saying, where it's better to come to an agreement where you're both like amicable and be more rational and come up with like a plan that works for both of you. And it was also partly about like protecting family assets and stuff for her parents and my parents. There's more parties to consider than just the two of us. And then also I'm a lazy person, and I know that dealing with like marriage separation is like a complicated process that's probably a lot more expensive and time consuming than just dealing with it up front as much as possible. So that was sort of the other thought process.
Do you talk about finances together?
That's been a conversation as of recently, just because we're 6 years into our relationship. So, we are trying to go to that next step eventually. So, yeah, the finances really regard our student loans and how, we both have a hefty amount of student loans. So then that's going to affect our overall debt. So, those conversations were definitely had. But I think, we're trying to strategize to that's our priority is to pay them off.
I agree. I think that we've always been pretty open about money, just what we make, what we feel like we need to make, how comfortable we are with spending on certain things. We also live together, so rent and stuff are a mutual decision. So I feel like it was never a super taboo topic, which I think has been beneficial for the health of our relationship overall.
We got some really interesting responses from people in New York City about how they manage their finances living in the city as a couple. If you like this video, please make sure to tap that like button and smash that subscribe button, and I'll see you guys in the next video.